It started with a truck packed high with enough fresh cucumbers to feed a small town. But carefully hidden inside was enough lethal cargo to take out an entire city. The cartels got creative in 2024, using America's food supply to move their product past the border. It ran smoothly until 10 United States Marines showed up, the kind of men trained to keep trouble from spilling over. How did they know where to look? And when it was over, who came out on top? Join us as we find out how much damage 10 United States Marines can bring to a ruthless cartel. In 2024, drug overdoses took 80,000 American lives. While families mourned, cartels found a new way to move drugs, one nobody in law enforcement had seen coming. They slipped their operations into the most trusted system in the country, the food supply. Produced trucks turned into weapons without anyone noticing. A shipment of cucumbers might carry more than vegetables. A celery truck could hide cargo worth millions. Pineapples, hollowed out and packed with methamphetamine, crossed the border smoother than any smuggler's dream. Frozen shrimp concealed bricks of cocaine. Watermelons hid fentanyl. To the border guards, it all passed for an everyday shipment. The numbers show the scale. 60 million tons of produce cross from Mexico into the United States each year. Only 8% gets inspected because fresh food spoils quickly and delays cost businesses a fortune. The cartels spotted that weakness immediately. They knew inspectors would rush checks rather than let truckloads rot. The setup runs like a military operation. Packing plant managers take bribes to slip drugs into crates. Truck drivers in on the scheme know exactly how to behave at checkpoints. Farmers' markets turn into quiet distribution hubs. In Georgia, the Atlanta State Farmers Market became the center of attention when agents found the largest meth seizure in DEA Atlanta history, hidden inside celery crates. A bust in Gainesville revealed just how carefully these smugglers operate. 700 pounds of meth moved in small bundles, buried among 30,000 pounds of cucumbers. The packages were wrapped to beat X-ray scanners. Without a tip-off, 500,000 doses would have hit American streets. Cartels study the supply chain like generals study the terrain. They pick produce that spoils fast, berries, lettuce, knowing inspectors can't check every crate without wrecking deliveries. The same system meant to feed the country doubles as their highway for poison. The infiltration runs deeper than most expect. In Arizona, a sting caught a produce company manager taking bribes to load drug-filled crates. It proved just how far the cartels can reach, sliding into legitimate businesses and turning food shipments into silent weapons. Most of the time, detection depends on someone talking. 7 out of 10 major busts start with an informant's tip. Random inspections catch less than 10% of what's moving. If no one speaks up, the drugs flow without resistance. Right now, the upper hand is theirs. The system is built for speed, not security. Every load that slips through funds the next one. Every miss costs lives. Border posts stay short-staffed, and scanners miss the sophisticated hiding techniques traffickers use. Methods sharp enough to impress military engineers. It works because it blends in completely. The same trucks delivering fresh produce to supermarkets also carry enough narcotics to wipe out a city. The cartels figured out the oldest trick in the book. Hide in plain sight. They took one of America's greatest strengths and turned it into their most effective weapon. But as the cartels tightened their grip on the grocery supply chain, a familiar face from their past kept showing up at the border. Each time the authorities sent him away, it barely slowed him down. For him, deportation wasn't exile. It was a quick trip home before the next crossing. Rufino Peta Perez treated America's immigration system like his own revolving door. The first time authorities caught him was in Arizona in 2001, hauling marijuana over the border. They sent him back to Mexico, just as they did with thousands of others. For most people, that would have been the end of it. For Perez, it was only a pause in the workday. He found his way back using fake papers and quiet, unguarded crossing points. Back then, border agents had no real way to track deportees. Perez disappeared into American neighborhoods and went straight back to business, this time moving cocaine. 6 years later, he was caught again. Prison came first, followed by another deportation in 2007. On paper, the system had done its job. In reality, it hadn't worked at all. In 2024, Immigration and Customs Enforcement recorded 7,500 cases of criminals re-entering the country after being deported. Roughly 30% of them worked directly for cartels, running collections, passing coded messages between cells, and moving shipments. Cartels didn't see these men as expelled threats. They saw them as soldiers on temporary leave. The weakness in the system shows up in the numbers. Only 1 in 5 high-risk deportees is properly tracked, a result of years of budget cuts. The rest slip back with the help of professional smugglers or corrupt officials. Cartels pay top rates to get their people home, treating the process like a military extraction. They know seasoned operatives are worth more than fresh recruits. Texas authorities stopped one smuggling run last year that had ferried 15 deported traffickers back into the country. Each seat on that route cost $10,000. The cartels didn't blink. These men already knew the roads, the contacts, and where the gaps in security lay. A rookie needs training. A deportee already knows the playbook. Perez was the proof. His third return went unnoticed for years. He settled in Georgia, keeping a low profile until the right job came along. It did. 700 pounds of meth hidden inside a cucumber truck. Perez sat in a nearby car, acting like a forward scout in a military pickup. Only a tip-off from inside intelligence gave him away. The Department of Homeland Security later reported that in 2025, a quarter of all drug-related arrests involved people who had already been deported once. These weren't chance border crossers looking for work. They were trained operatives returning to complete their missions. Every removal had taught them how to get in more cleanly next time. For Perez, deportation was never a punishment. It was training. His first trip taught him patrol schedules. The second showed him which crossing points were worth avoiding. By the third, he knew exactly how to disappear. Officials on the ground admit the truth. The system doesn't work against cartels. Deport one man, and they bring him back. Money isn't a problem. Smugglers are always available. Corruption is easy to find on both sides of the line. The revolving door spins because the cartels keep pushing it, not as a deterrent, but as a way to sharpen their best people. The revolving door kept turning until one president decided to weld it shut. Not with more arrests, but with military muscle. What happens when America stops calling drug dealers criminals and starts hunting them like enemy forces? In 2025, Trump returned to the White House with orders to unleash the full weight of America's military against the cartels. The tone shifted instantly. 10 United States Marines took positions along the southern border, moving in step with Border Patrol agents. This wasn't policing anymore. It was a combat deployment. His sharpest weapon was the Halt Fentanyl Act, a law that reclassified all fentanyl-related substances as weapons of mass destruction. Sentences jumped to a minimum of 10 years without parole. Asset seizures expanded far beyond cash and vehicles, now including homes, businesses, and anything tied to drug profits. In Arizona, one raid brought in $3 million under the new rules. Then came his boldest move, labeling the Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That single step unlocked tools that drug enforcement had never touched before. The FBI could freeze cartel accounts anywhere in the world. The Treasury Department gained power to map and disrupt global financial networks. Intelligence agencies started passing classified information between departments without the usual red tape. The effect was immediate. Treasury agents shut down $60 million sitting in cartel-linked accounts overseas. Street-level busts took a backseat to financial warfare. Suddenly, cartels discovered that moving cash was harder than moving narcotics. Every dollar they lost stalled a shipment, a bribe, or a weapons purchase. Joint task forces became the new norm. DEA brought drug expertise. ICE locked down border operations. U.S. Marshals hunted fugitives. All of it ran through unified command centers, where intelligence flowed like ammunition in a live firefight. The results came quickly. In the first year, cartel-related arrests rose by 20%. One joint operation in New Mexico ended with the capture of a senior Sinaloa figure hiding in a safe house. Agents seized 500 pounds of fentanyl precursors before they could be processed. Homeland Security reported that 70% of major busts in 2025 came from these combined strike teams. California showed just how different the strategy had become. 15 cartel operatives were taken down in a sweep that netted $5 million in dirty money. The focus wasn't on street dealers anymore. It was on cutting off the flow of funds that kept the cartels armed and bribed. Military-grade intelligence marked the targets long before they knew they were under watch. Once the terrorist designation took effect, everything changed. FBI counterterrorism squads used the same playbook they'd used against overseas enemies. Financial tracking systems followed money with the precision of missile guidance. Communication intercepts revealed plans before they could be carried out. The border began to resemble a war front. Drones drifted over smuggling trails, sending live images back to command posts miles away. Helicopters hovered on standby, ready to sweep in on anyone crossing the way air support moves into a firefight. Marines built forward operating bases in the busiest corridors. What used to be a checkpoint now looked and ran like a military front. The cartels found themselves facing something they had never planned for: the full force of American military doctrine aimed squarely at them. This wasn't a series of drug busts anymore. It was a campaign. Every arrest, every seizure, every raid fed into a larger strategy to wipe out entire networks. The war on drugs had finally become a real war, and the people leading it wore stars on their shoulders, not badges on their chests. Trump's military machine needed a target, and on August 8, 2024, they found one big enough to shake the ground. What happens when a routine truck stop turns into a discovery of poison strong enough to kill 500,000 Americans? Gainesville, Georgia, became the stage for the largest coordinated bust in DEA history. For weeks, intelligence teams had been tracing intercepted communications, looking for a break. It came in the form of an 18-wheeler rolling in from Mexico with 30,000 pounds of cucumbers. Packed between the produce sat 700 pounds of pure meth with a street value of $4.5 million. The takedown looked less like a police stop and more like a special forces mission. DEA surveillance teams fanned out around the Gainesville market. Border Patrol joined local police to lock down a perimeter. The plan depended on perfect timing. If the suspects sensed even a ripple of law enforcement, they would vanish. In a nearby car, Andres Chasso Jr. and Rufino Peta Perez waited like forward scouts, ready to guide the shipment into the next phase. Court records later revealed their network stretched across Florida, North Carolina, and beyond. One truck connected to distribution cells across the Southeast, enough meth to generate over 500,000 individual doses. 3 months later, the same pattern repeated. This time it was Atlanta and celery. Behind crates of legitimate produce, a 16-wheeler carried 2,380 pounds of meth. The driver, Jesus Martinez, was sitting on a wholesale stash worth $3.2 million. DEA analysts calculated it could produce over 1 million street doses. Neither bust happened by accident. 70% of major drug seizures come from informant tips, not random checks. In both cases, the DEA tapped its human sources embedded inside cartel operations. These contacts fed agents, shipment schedules, truck routes, and even cargo manifests in real time. The Atlanta State Farmers Market turned out to be a frontline battlefield. It's one of the largest produce distribution hubs in the Southeast, the kind of place where a few extra pallets barely raise an eyebrow. For the cartels, that traffic meant cover. Legitimate shipments and illicit cargo moved side by side, indistinguishable without targeted intelligence. What impressed even military analysts was the precision of the concealment. The meth came in small bundles scattered throughout legitimate loads, breaking up the density patterns that X-ray scanners look for. Each shipment was timed to move with perishable goods, exploiting the urgency to get produce cleared before it spoiled. The Gainesville operation cracked open a network that had been under quiet observation for months. Phone intercepts mapped connections between suppliers in Mexico and distribution cells in the United States. Financial records traced payments flowing back south through complex channels designed to vanish on paper. Each arrest fed more leads into the system. Georgia's agriculture commissioner moved quickly. New screening procedures were ordered for all produce shipments from Mexico. State task forces got extra funding to work directly with federal agencies on joint operations. The stakes went beyond law enforcement metrics. Stopping 500,000 doses in Gainesville meant preventing thousands of potential overdoses. The Atlanta seizure could have fueled major cities for months. Each interception not only cut into cartel profits, but also delayed their next operation. Under the new Halt Fentanyl Act, Martinez and the Gainesville operatives faced mandatory minimums of 10 years without parole. Prosecutors moved to seize their trucks, cash, and any property tied to the smuggling. In court filings, the government didn't talk about these cases as criminal trials. They framed them as combat victories in an ongoing war. These massive busts rattled cartel leadership, but they also exposed something far more dangerous, a flaw baked deep into America's system. What happens when the very thing that fuels your economy becomes the enemy's most effective weapon? The same supply chain that feeds 330 million people every day doubles as a smuggler's dream. Each year, about 60 million tons of perishable goods roll in from Mexico. Any slowdown means crops rot, businesses take multi-million-dollar losses, and politicians start worrying about trade fights with our southern neighbor. Cartels figured out early that America values speed over scrutiny, and they exploit it. Border inspection teams face an impossible job. A true search means cracking open crates, picking through individual boxes, and running them through scanners one at a time. That process takes hours. In the meantime, the lettuce wilts, trucks stack up for miles, and businesses howl at Washington to get the line moving. Criminals treat this time pressure like generals use favorable terrain. At a crossing like Laredo, only about 7% of food haulers get the kind of deep search that would catch a well-hidden load. Customs officers are forced to choose, slow trade to a crawl or gamble that the shipment's clean. The cartels only need one lucky pass to bankroll months of operations. The math is ugly, and it's in their favor. Most big seizures still come from tips, not technology. DEA officials openly admit it. 70% of the major hits start with a human source. Random checks barely scratch 10% of what's moving. When informants dry up, so does enforcement, and the system is stretched thin. Border stations are chronically short-staffed. Many agents spend more time buried in paperwork than inspecting cargo. The scanning gear is there, but there aren't enough trained eyes to interpret the images fast enough. Without the time to dig into anomalies, even the best machines can't keep up. Cartels, meanwhile, learn from every bust. They shift routes, change timing, and rework packaging, the same way a battlefield commander adapts after losing a skirmish. Each failed run is just another lesson for the next attempt. Right now, they hold the initiative. They pick when and where to move. They decide how to hide it. Border enforcement reacts after the play has already started, and every clean run pours money back into refining their system. The uncomfortable truth is that slowing farm imports risks triggering a trade war. Mexico grows produce Americans expect year-round, like tomatoes in January and avocados in February. Agricultural lobbies and importers push hard on lawmakers to keep the border moving. Security takes a backseat to commerce, and the cartels know it. The numbers behind that trade-off are brutal. In 2024, 75,000 Americans died from smuggled drugs. CDC data says most came in through legitimate trade channels. One missed shipment can mean thousands of overdoses. Trump's militarized push has made dents. Fentanyl seizures are down 12% in 2025, arrests are up 20%, and millions in cartel assets are frozen. But the core vulnerability hasn't moved. This is asymmetric warfare in its purest form. The defender has to be perfect every single time, while the attacker needs only an occasional win. The cartels have already factored losses into their budget. They expect to get caught sometimes, and they just work around it. In the end, America faces the kind of bind military planners dread. Keep trade fast and risk infiltration, or slow it down and cripple the economy. For now, the cartels are making sure that choice stays impossible. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.